Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV. I'm sorry if the lighting isn't great. I look pale as fuck every time I come home and I do these videos. Okay, that's not that bad. But we're here to talk about the 1987 British supernatural horror film written and directed by Clive Barker and produced by Christopher Figg. Obviously, Clive Barker wrote the original book that would turn this into a franchise. It was written in like 1986. This movie was made the year after. It was called The Hellbound Heart. I guess it's not that hard to make a movie right after it's called a novella. I don't really know what the fuck that means. Is it like a short story? But I don't know how people do that. Like we've seen that with a couple film adaptations. But yeah, I've obviously watched like the remake already from like 2022. And that was great. I think that's honestly better than this one. But we're here with the OG, the one that started it all. We're gonna talk about the plot, what people are thinking about it, what I'm thinking about it. Let's get it. So the story starts in Morocco, where Frank Cotton, a hedonist, buys a puzzle box said to open the door to a realm of otherworldly pleasure. And obviously, you should know what a hedonist is. A hedonist is someone that like seeks pleasure in life. Like that's someone like all they want is pleasure, like sexually, happiness wise, emotionally. I don't know. But at home in his bare attic, Frank solves the puzzle, and hooked chains emerge, tearing him apart. So yeah, he solves this puzzle because it promises pleasure or something like that, and then these chains rip him apart. A black robed figure resets the puzzle, and the room is restored back to normal. For someone else to come through, set the puzzle off, get these Cenobites and Pinhead to come through. Which, to be honest, those characters aren't a huge presence in the film, which doesn't really make sense. And I feel like that's something that's holding this film back to being a horror classic to me. So later, Frank's brother Larry moves into the same house. Great idea, right? He intends to rebuild his relationship with his second wife, Julia. Larry is unaware that Julia had an affair with his brother Frank before her marriage to him, and she's having these visions. She's feeling like paranoid about it. She's having these crazy experiences, dreams, all this stuff. So when Larry accidentally cuts his hand moving furniture, his blood drips on the attic floor and resurrects Frank in a ghoulish form. So yeah, now he's kind of this spirit, but there's kind of like a plot kind of building up throughout the movie, like, oh, if you kill people, he's gonna like take their flesh and stuff and become more and more human as the film goes on, which that aspect was actually pretty cool, pretty badass. It was like one of my favorites parts of the movie. But yeah, so Julia later finds Frank. Still obsessed with him, she agrees to help restore his body so they can run away together because she still has a lot of feelings for this guy. Obviously, they had sex before, they've had affairs, she had a great time. She wants to be with him, not with Larry. So Julia picks up men in bars and brings them back to the attic where she mortally wounds them. She brings them back to the house, which is fucked up because Larry literally is living there and he bought it with her, and so she's bringing them there to like give them the impression that she wants to like have sex with them up in this attic. Then she brings them in there, has like this hammer hanging on the wall, and she just bludgeons them to death with it, which is fucking crazy, but it's probably one of the best parts of the film. Not that I like agree with this, but you get me. So Frank then drains their life, which regenerates his body again. You know. So Frank explains to Julia that having exhausted all sensory experiences, he sought out the puzzle box, which was supposed to provide access to a realm of new carnal pleasures, which again is what he seeked. That's what he thought he was getting. He didn't get it, obviously. So when the puzzle was solved, the Cenobites came to subject him to supreme sadomasochism, which is like deprivation of pleasure, like the exact opposite. Like, how dare you seek this? It's like a lustful thing, it's like a sinning thing. Like, oh, you seeked pleasure? How dare you? That's lust. We're gonna punish you and you're gonna burn in hell, pretty much. But Kirsty, which is a weird name. Why is her name just not like Christy or something? Larry's teenage daughter and Frank's niece sees Julia bringing a man to the house and follows her to the attic where she finds Frank. Which is this weird. By now, he's not really like flesh yet. He's more just like blood, bones, like veins and shit. It's pretty fucking gross. He looks like the Vision guy from Marvel. That's what he looks like right now. So she evades Frank and escapes with the puzzle box, collapsing shortly after. I guess like the power of the puzzle box kind of took her over. I'm not really sure. And by the way, this movie is super outdated, so it's actually really nice to like now see this and now see that they have remakes for it. So awakening in a hospital, Kirsty solves the box out of curiosity. I don't know why you would do that when you're like literally just recovering. Um, and unknowingly summons these Cenobites and a monster called the Engineer, which she narrowly escaped from. The Engineer, I don't really remember. Huh. I don't remember which one the Engineer was. It wasn't Pinhead. Wait, or I don't know. Maybe they called the Engineer Pinhead. So the Cenobite's leader, oh yeah, here we go, referred to by fans as Pinhead. He doesn't have an actual name, which is interesting and adds to like this mysterious aspect to him. Explains that although they have been perceived as both angels and demons, they are simply explorers from another dimension seeking carnal experiences, and they can no longer differentiate between pain and pleasure. You know what they do. Can't tell if he's in pain. He can't tell if he likes it or not. You know. So when they attempt to force Kirsty to return to their realm with them, she informs Pinhead that Frank has escaped them, and she's trying to like diverge their attention to him. She's like, "Well, this freaking guy over here, you had him killed, you had him tortured with all these hooks and stuff, but he got away from you." And I don't know how the fuck she knew about this. Did she read up on it? It's weird how she knew this. Um, the Cenobites agree to spare Kirsty and recapture Frank instead, with the condition that Frank must confess to escaping them. And if he doesn't, they're back after Kirsty. So, Kirsty returns home, where Frank has killed Larry and has taken on his identity by wearing his skin. It's pretty fucked up. There was definitely some irony, like towards the beginning of the movie, where there was that guy like putting the skin together. Um, Julia shows her what is purported to be Frank's flayed corpse in the attic, which it's a pretty nasty scene. Um, Kirsty then leaves the attic, locking the door behind her. Um, the Cenobites appear and, not fooled by the deception, demand the man who did this. Um, Kirsty tries to escape, but is held by Julia and Frank. Um, Frank reveals his true identity to Kirsty, and when his sexual advances are rejected, he decides to kill her to complete his rejuvenation. It's fucking weird, man. Like, he's making these sexual advances towards her while being in her father's skin. And it's super weird. It's super, like, I don't know. It kind of rubs you the wrong way sometimes. But he accidentally stabs Julia instead and drains her without remorse. He had to find somebody. And the next person he was going to hit, he was seeing red. He was about to crash out. No, I'm just kidding. But he hits Julia. He's like, well, might as well take her instead. Frank chases Kirsty to the attic, and when he is about to kill her, the Cenobites appear after hearing him confess to killing her father. He confessed to his crimes. He confessed that he sinned. Now certain he is the one they are looking for, they ensnare him with chains and hooks and tear him to pieces. It rips him apart in his body, like explodes. It's kind of fucked. And I'm not gonna lie, I expected this movie to have a little more gore than it did, but I'm actually kind of happy that some of the stuff wasn't as brutal. You know, they showed like a split second of his body tearing apart, and then they just cut to Kirsty. So when the Cenobites double cross Kirsty and attempt to take her, she grabs the puzzle box from Julia's dead hands and banishes them by reversing the motion needed to open the puzzle box. Again, it's a classic thing in a movie where, oh, if you just reverse what just happened, they're gonna go away. I don't think that's how physics works. I don't think that's how the world works, but Hollywood seems to think that way. So let's just go with it. Kirsty's boyfriend Steve arrives and they both escape the collapsing house. Like, it's starting to like implode on itself because of all this like power in the box and all this crap. So afterward, Kirsty throws the puzzle box into a burning pyre, which is like a big old like fire thing. Yeah. A vagrant who has been stalking Kirsty walks into the fire and retrieves the box before transforming into a winged skeleton-like creature and flying away. And I forgot to mention, like, before they left the house, there was this weird creature that she saw in the hospital before, kind of chasing after them. But yeah, there was this weird guy that was kind of like walking around her when she was at work, kind of peeping at her while they were like walking the town. And I mean, I guess it kind of has, it kind of at the time had sequel potential, which it turned into a sequel because of a guy like that. So the box ends up with the same merchant who sold it to Frank, where he offers it to another customer, and that's where the curse continues. That's where kind of the movie continues almost, and why they have multiple films, I guess. So let's kind of get into the critical reception, and then I am out of here. Got to put these clips together for you guys. So this is always interesting. This movie's been out for about or damn near 40 years. It's pretty close. Um, yeah, I mean the film's Barker's dazzling debut that creates such an atmosphere of dread that the astonishing set pieces simply detonate in a chain reaction of cumulative intensity. The film was a serious, intelligent, and disturbing horror film. I mean, for its time, when the film first came out, sure, it was really fucking good. I'm sure, like it was quite a spectacle for horror at the time. Now looking back on it, it is not aged very well. Um, yeah, I mean, Barker has achieved a fine degree of menace. I mean, this is a really good opening film. This is a really good debut, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, it's the best horror film ever to be made in Britain, I guess. It's at least one of them. It's seen as that, at least. I don't know if I'd agree, but the most immediately striking aspect of the movie is its seriousness of tone in an era when horror films, the Nightmare on Elm Street or Evil Dead films in particular, tend to be broadly comic. This movie takes itself seriously. There's no satire, there's no humor here. It's all just blood and guts. The film suffers from a few minor compromises, though, notably a decision made fairly late in shooting to change the specifically English setting for an ambiguous and unbelievable mid-Atlantic one. Yeah, it doesn't really fit the vibe sometimes. Like just the aesthetic of like where the movie is shot and the aesthetic of Pinhead, like his lair, completely different. And when he gets thrown to the real world, it doesn't even really make sense. At least with like Nightmare on Elm Street, for example, you see Freddy. He's kind of like this like this weird like country hillbilly looking guy, and it's kind of in like more of a rural area where it takes place, I guess. At least like a smaller suburb, you know. The Cenobites were well-used suggestive figures, but their monster companion is a more blunderingly obvious concession to the gross-out taste of the teenage drive-in audience. The film was a return to the cutting edge of horror cinema at the time, and in more gruesome moments, the film is a reminder of the grand, guagonal intensity that has recently tended to disintegrate into lazy splatter. Hellraiser does have its share of problems. Obviously, the redubbing of peripheral character with a mid-Atlantic twang, the relocation of the film in a geographical limbo, like I said. The film, however, cannot be faulted for the ambitiousness of its themes. Sadly, the moral and emotional complexity that is the film's greatest strength is likely to be deemed its greatest weakness by an audience weaned on the misplaced jocularity of a movie like Fright Night. Um, the Barker singularly casted uninteresting actors. The special effects aren't bad, but damp. We are in the late 80s, guys. Like, I don't know. I really don't think the special effects should have looked that terrible. I don't know. I guess it might have been low budget. This guy was trying to make a hit out of a book. I guess it makes sense. It was his directorial debut as well. The film is a dark, frequently disturbing, and occasionally terrifying film. But I mean, Barker's vision hasn't quite made the conversion from paper to celluloid. There are some weaknesses, particularly the framing of close-ups and the generic score, but there are some moments of genuinely inventive gore. The film falls apart at its climax, degenerating to a surprisingly lame ending full of special effects and triumphant good. It just ends kind of lamely. Like, it's not really that interesting at a point. Um, you know, it's a dreary it's as dreary a piece of goods as has masqueraded as horror and many a long cold night. This is one of those movies you sit through with mounting dread as the fear grows inside of you that it will indeed turn out to be feature length, and that this is a movie without wit, style, or reason, and the true horror is that actors were made to betray, and technicians to realize its bankruptcy of imagination. Wow. Roger Ebert, whatever. Jesus. Hellraiser is well made, not well acted though. I wouldn't even say it's well made. What am I talking about here? The visual effects are kind of cool. I don't know. Um, I would say it's a D to C movie. I wouldn't say it's like a trash movie, but I'm not probably going to watch it again. And it's elevated by writer-director Clive Barker's fiendishly unique vision. Hellraiser offers a disquieting and sadistically smart alternative to mindless gore. Very average movie though. It really is. It really is average. Um, you got to put in like a top 100 horror list though. It is that iconic. But with that being said, I'm out, guys. I don't really have much to say about this thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I did kind of review it for a long time, but Gotta get these clips together, man, and gotta get going with my day. So peace out, everybody.